Hi, friends. Last chapter here. Hooray, here we go. Sorry, sun's really bright in the background, but it is what it is. All right. This chapter was all about how we come up with a final number or a final grade for students. And I loved the way this chapter started. So I'm just going to read it to you. 3 to 4 times a year, we still had to dock with the mothership and take all of the thinking and learning that was happening day to day in our thinking classrooms and report out a grade. And I just love that because I think it highlights the inconsistency or the inauthenticity or the feeling of ickiness that comes with those midterm and final grades sometimes. And I think what it comes down to is, I should give you context that I moved to a grade list system, which would probably be more based off of, some people would consider it like a skills-based grading system or an evidence-based grading system a couple of years ago. So instead of me giving you like 5 out of 6 on a test, and I'm recording that as like test 1, 45 out of 50. What I would do instead was I would have my course broken down into like 40 key look fors or skills that I need to see by the end of the year. And if a student is able to demonstrate them, then I basically give them a check mark in my mark book. And then at the end, I just look at overall how many check marks were they able to achieve. And then the student gives me their evidence on what they think they've been able to achieve. And then we translate that to a level. And so what I really liked about this chapter was that it kind of gave me the reasons why to justify it. And a lot of times I've gotten a lot of pushback because people feel that the points-based system is more objective. Because the points-based system, it's like authentic and you have the same numbers for students and it doesn't give an advantage or disadvantage to anyone. However, that's like an appearance, and that system is actually very, very flawed with a lot of bias. So for example, a lot of times we'll look at like the number that's spat out at the end and say, oh, that doesn't actually reflect what that kid can do, and bump that mark up. Maybe a little bit, maybe a lot, depending on what the number was punched out at the end. So we inherently know that that system is flawed. And then when they do studies and they give the same question to a bunch of teachers, they'll get a bias, or like some teachers will give it a 2 out of 5, some will give it a 3 out of 5, and some will give it a 4 to 5. And they see this distribution and it's the same distribution across everything. And so there's this, it's not as objective or as accurate as you think it is. And it also doesn't play to the advantage that, so say you have a kid who has a divorced parents and they spend 2 weeks at one home and then 2 weeks at the other. Some of us will see a change in behavior depending on which parent they're living with. So if your tests just happen to line up with certain movements between families, then you'll see like spike down. And so it's just not objective. So what this one was talking about was using this similar tool to what we did with the students to track what they know, track when a student's been able to demonstrate a skill or a learning objective at the beginning, intermediate, and advanced level. You can break your skills down into as many subcategories as you want and feel comfortable. I found initially I was around the 35 marker. I've now really pushed it backwards, and now I'm more into the 18 to 20, and then just looking at basic, intermediate, and advanced is what I'm going to try this year. And essentially you just mark through and you put check marks when you see stuff, and you can put little annotations like little C's for I had a conversation, or G when I saw them do it in group work, or T if you see it on a test. So you can still do tests. But the really cool thing is then if a kid has already demonstrated a skill to you and you're marking their test, you actually cannot have to worry about the question that they didn't need to show you, and focus all your time and attention and comments and feedback on the skills they still have to show you. So it can save some time, and you can kind of pick and choose what questions you mark as a teacher based on what skills you need to see. And you can also pick and choose as a student. So maybe you give students choice when you give them tests and quizzes, and give them options to pick a beginner, intermediate, advanced based off of what they know they need to show you. So it just turns tests into more of a show what you know, instead of a punitive go. And you'll actually get way better outcomes out of them. When I turned tests to feedback only, I got brilliant work out of my students. This chapter has so many questions and answers, and I think it's very specific to different teachers. So I won't go over them in detail because I think it really depends on what model you're coming from, whether it's the triangulation or this system or this system. So they're very specific for those people. But basically, what it's talking about is move away from our points-based system, move towards a more equitable standards-based system, and look at the complexity of those levels to then give them a grade.